Well, we are live. Hello, I'm your host, Marcus Ruiz Evans, Mark Ruiz to some here in California. And I'm here with a colleague, a friend, someone that I've been watching for a while, and frankly, someone that I looked up to. I knew Adam Kokesh before I ever met him for years. I was a not big fan of the Iraq War. I was the guy in Fresno County who had all the facts about how the Iraq War was not going well, and we were being lied to about it. And I was telling everybody, and boy, did people hate me in Fresno County for it. And then I saw this guy called Adam Kokesh, who was a veteran and from Iraq. And he was saying literally the exact same things that I was saying, and they were all true. Boy, it was nice to have someone in my corner saying, look, you can still support the troops and hate the war. I remember that moment. It was a moment of clarity and relief in the early period of my activism, a formative stage that made me the man I am today. So, Adam, enough about me. Besides the top knot, what's new in your life? How you doing? Are you okay? You seem to be in a good mood, but it sounds like you went through a very nasty period. Are you okay, brother?
Yeah, well, I did 12 days straight, not just in solitary confinement, but in a 6 by 9 foot cell. And I spent over that 12 days a total of less than an hour and a half outside of that box. And I was released victoriously, triumphantly even, on the blessed winter solstice this year, December 21st. And as today is December 26th, by now I should have my act together and be back in my regular routine. I am here home in Gardenia with my dogs and my wonderful partner, GI Mary Jane, and my dogs, Thelma and Louise, who did a little time in police custody themselves, sadly, as part of this ordeal. But yeah, I was charged with felony 2 for distribution or intent to distribute psilocybin mushrooms. And I basically beat the charges by a policy of or practice of complete non-cooperation, telling them, like admitting to the fact and saying, no, I have a right to do this under this law and this law and this law. And I am in the right and you are in the wrong, and you will back the fuck down or I'm going to make it cost you way more than it's worth. And they blinked first, and the case was dismissed. So I'm enjoying my victory lap.
You have to be rattled a little bit. Multiple days in effective solitary confinement is used to crack the most hardened of criminal minds. Now, obviously, you're not a criminal, you're a freedom fighter, but that's got to hurt anybody.
Sea turtles, totally cool? Sea turtles.
Sea turtles. Okay. Maybe your time in a war zone helped prepare you for a little bit of a tough ride, it sounds like. I can only imagine being isolated from everybody else on a theoretical proposition of your interpretation of the law, and you're hoping you get it right and everybody sees that the way that you see it is the right way to see it. Now, obviously that worked out, but you couldn't have known that it was for sure going to work out while you were in there. I mean, this is a little bit of Martin Luther King in the Birmingham jail. You're on the side of justice, but do you know that justice is actually going to agree? Any moments of doubt while you were in there?
Huh?
Any moments of doubt while you were in there?
Actually, huge. And there were, I want to say to that, first, there was a song that really motivated me. And on this road trip that this was all a part of, I was listening to this song, having heard it for the first time a few weeks ago, and then listening to it and learning the lyrics and learning the story behind it on this trip. And it's the song called My Head is Filled with Music by the Real Mackenzies. And it tells the story of Billy Millen, or Bill Millen, the piper of the Normandy invasion. I know you know this one. He's got a Wikipedia page. I read that. I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of like history buff on par with the great Marcus Ruiz Evans here. But Billy Millen was the piper on the beach at Normandy and this was World War II, they had just decided, hey, we're not going to do like drummers and buglers and bagpipers in combat anymore. That's not a thing. And yet they still had this guy as a regimental piper for one of the units, one of the Scottish units under Lord Lovett on the landing for D-Day, 1944. And his commander said to his bagpiper, Billy Millen, you're going to take the lead. You're going to march. And the only reason he didn't get shot by the German snipers was because they thought he was fucking insane. And he even protested to his commander at one point and said, I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to do that. He was on a boat landing, not the first wave, but right behind it at D-Day, Normandy, 1944, as a non-armed accompaniment to his commander, carrying a Scottish long knife, the one that you ceremonially carry with bagpipes. And he marched through people dying all around him, because at some point he just said, well, this is what I'm ordered to do. This is what I'm called to serve. I get it. I'm supposed to play my bagpipes while these troops, my brothers, are marching into German machine gun fire. And he led them across a bridge where he was ordered to march leading a formation. And while they were marching across the bridge, every other group of troops that came after that, they guerrilla crawled across. He led a formation of troops across the bridge playing bagpipes while 12 motherfuckers got shot in the head by German snipers. And it makes me cry, because it's the best of humanity serving the worst of humanity, when you know the reality of what war is, and that even World War II was not a righteous war. A lot of people with righteous intentions got sucked into it, but it was not a righteous war by any stretch of the imagination, on any side. And what I was hearing the call for was not, orders from an officer, but just a call to conscience, where, I was facing a felony too, and I didn't find out until I got out of jail that was 8 to 24 years.
That's pretty serious.
I didn't look down, and the song, the chorus of it is, my head is filled with music. In my heart, there's always a song. And I just felt that that motivated me and made it so that, whatever I was facing in terms of I'm going to turn down bond. I mean, hypothetically, I can just bend over and bail at any time, but as a matter of principle, no. I'm just going to heed the call. I'm going to follow that principle. And, whatever I'm facing, in that situation, it doesn't matter. 8 to 24 years, getting McAfee'd in jail, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Committed to the cause, no matter the personal cost. Is that it?
Well, to put it in perspective, one of the things that people say, makes me special as an activist is that I'm brave. I don't think that's really true. It's just that I have confidence in my calculations. There's a certain hardship with going to jail. There's a certain risk with it. There's a certain compromise to your health. And a lot of people don't bother to quantify it, but it's quantifiable. It's not that bad. You can weigh it out in a cost-benefit analysis and say, well, if I can see the, extrinsic benefits of eventually, at least I might be putting a bug in some cops' heads who, like the cops who shot Johnny Hurley, are going to think twice the next time they go to fuck with somebody on the side of the road like this. It might be another episode like this, fuck, Adam Kokesh put the spotlight on us and gave people the formula to fight back and say, no, I'm not gonna play your game. And before we get into anything else on the tactics of that, so even the risk of death, if they want you dead, we live in a world where we live at the pleasure of everybody else. And one of the things you appreciate from, going through at least the combat experience that I did and facing death in the various ways that I have, both in and out of the military, you realize and come to appreciate just how fragile human life is.
Mm.
Like, if anybody around you wants you dead, you're dead.
Especially in activism.
It's really easy to kill somebody. Like, and I know that sounds really dark, but it's kind of like memento mori in a very positive, life affirming, encouraging way to say, live it while you got it.
It's certainly what a lot of activists have to deal with today. You get any sort of pressure on the system, you make any sort of headway, the system comes back. There's instantaneous death threats. Sometimes there's people pulling a knife on you in a public display, and you're saying, hey, I just want to say my piece. And he goes, well, I disagree, and I'm ready to stab you to death. I mean, if you're not up for that, you're really not going to make it as an activist. Now, certainly I haven't been in combat, but I've seen that part, and it scares away a lot of decent humans, and it leaves only gladiators.
Well, here's the other thing that's, as a matter of perspective. In a lot of ways, I feel safer with a spotlight than being in the shadows. And if you're going to do this, you have to embrace that tactically as a strategic sort of policy to say, I'm going to be transparent and open, and I'm I'm not going to try to do anything covert. And I kind of want everybody to have that. In a way, with social media, we all have that potential now. A lot of activists want to shrink from that, and it's like, nah, you got to be networked to be, you have to be interdependent to be successfully interdependent, and that's really the enlightened way of living. Is not to think like, yes, I'm capable of being independent, therefore I can richly, voluntarily engage with righteous win-win relationships with everybody around me, rather than government coercive win-lose relationships where everybody pays in so many incalculable ways, and we rely on systems of coercion. So in the nonviolent tactics, though, one, never physically resist on the side of the road. This started with a traffic stop. And when you're in that first confrontation with police officers and they have their mind set on, I'm taking you into custody, go into custody. Don't create physical resistance on the side of the road, puts other people's safety at risk. The officers have already made the decision, we're putting safety at risk to physically accost somebody. Go with that until the safety comes down. So our other perspective here about like the risk that I take on doing this, or you take on doing this as public activists, compared to just being rank and file citizen living in the shadow, the risks that you face on a daily basis from all the bullshit and all the costs of compliance of being just a random shooting victim or poisoning victim, or the next person to die of chronic whatever the fuck, or didn't have access to medical care, or the wrong drugs, or whatever, all of the things that people genuinely die of, like, really, I've been doing this for over a decade. I'm not dead. Like, I have friends that have committed, I have more friends that have committed suicide than I think have died from government directive. The extra risk that you take on, I think, is far outweighed against the pain of the regret of being on your deathbed going, yeah, I just sort of watched all that shit happen. As opposed to saying, well, no, I took this gift of life and gave back with it, and I used it to serve humanity the best way that I could. I don't want to like have kids and can say, yeah, I've done my part. So
I get that. But there are times where sometimes activists do lose their life. And usually if it is by the police state, they manage to make it happen in a manner in which you cannot attribute to them. I know here in Fresno County, John Lang was a activist who exposed the Fresno police were setting up stings in parking lots, and then they would follow poor cars owned by minorities to that person's house. So they would wait in a parking lot, racially profile, and by the make of the car, economically profile, and then follow that person until they made a mistake and then pull them over so that they could inflate their arrest records and money coming into the police. John Lang was a Fresno person. He highlighted that, and then 2 weeks later was found shot in the back twice and burned himself alive, and it was ruled as a suicide by the Fresno County coroner. So can I prove that he was killed for his activism? No. Is it the most likely scenario given the classic Greek logical mechanism called Occam's razor? Hell yes. But you're right. Most activists can get through, and if you can handle it,
it's like John McAfee, was
right,
murdered in a Spanish jail cell.
right,
I have to admit, like I can only say that with 90% confidence
yeah,
that he didn't commit suicide, like they're saying that the note that they tried to pass off was bullshit,
yeah,
that they were already lying about him, that he really had, knowing him personally, everything he said, like, nah, John McAfee didn't kill himself. I mean, and if he did, even in that odds that I'm wrong, the government fucking drove him to it and is still fucking responsible.
yeah. I
Uh,
doubt he did it. I think it's the same thing as that other guy who had a lot of information on one percenters, and he killed himself in his jail cell, and everybody knows that that
yeah.
was rigged. But
So
yet the
speaking
official
of that,
story is still that it didn't happen.
in this case of my last 12 days of incarceration, I need to point out that my strategy of just complete non-compliance and non-cooperation, non-violent resistance, well, it started with when we were pulling up to the county jail, having driven me, I think, 30-ish minutes from the site of the traffic stop. And I told the officer, who happened to be an Iraq vet from the Army and a driver as well, similar to my experience. I was civil affairs and a driver for part of my time there. Uh, I told him, like, hey, I'm not cooperating anymore. You want me to go into that jail? You're going to have to carry me. And so we got another dude, and they picked me up by the armpits, and they were pretty good about it. But I made them work for it, and I talked to them, and I was friendly, and I was kind of a dick, I guess it's really offensive to me. I take a certain, I hate to say pride, it's not pride, but insistence on uh, recognition of the importance of physical fitness. That if you are a spiritual creature having a physical experience as opposed to the other way around, you still need to have respect for the vessel. And if your vessel is not at least fit enough to actively support brain health, you have not gotten enough sleep, your blood is not sufficiently flooded with nutrients that your brain consumes in thinking, as it is supported by your oxygen system, the rest of your nervous system, your entire blood circulatory system. If you are not sufficiently taking care of your body to support that function of your brain, of your thought, of your spiritual experience, then you're fucking throwing your life away. And it really pisses me off to see people who do that. I hate that people give up their health for the mouthfeel, satisfaction, everything tingly, dopamine bullshit of food addiction. It is a waste of your gift of life to turn your body into a food processing unit, and that's what most Americans have done. And even for a lot of my life, when I was relatively fit, I used to say, like, well, I lift so that I can eat more ice cream.
Yeah,
And
I did that too. It's a bad philosophy, but it's one
but
of
it's not like, yeah, why eat? And I'm not against sweet frozen treats conceptually here. There's a healthy way to do it, but like, why add dairy and high fructose corn syrup and corporatism and taxes into what you're putting into your body for the convenience of bullshit satisfaction? And I don't want to sound preachy, but whatever it is that you figure out for yourself, I support you as long as you really embrace that gift. And when I see people throwing that away, man, it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart, and it's hard not to say something. So
help me out though. How does this relate to you being picked up by police officers and?
because I was making fun of them all for being fat. I put it on them. No, it was the first two guys that I was talking to there were like big burly dudes. Like they were both about 6'1", and like they both could have been, college level, football whatever linemen do. I played rugby. I don't know football. But they were both like 80 to 100 pounds overweight. And they were both like, one of them's an Iraq veteran. And so it's like, and you were in the Army and I was in the Marines. I'm going to talk shit, dude. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I just kind of got in that mode. And the other guy was actually really cool. And I don't want to get too personal, but he really dove deep and like, well, yeah, I'm overweight because I was depressed. And I was like, damn, because like we really connected on that. And now I eat one vegan meal a day when I'm on my game and I can control my diet. I'm not in jail. I eat a big salad, and then whatever other like healthy snacks I can. I stuff myself once a day over like a 2-hour period. I have a feast like every day. I get to have a feast. It's one vegan meal in multi courses. I eat for I'm still fine tuning my game on this. Always growing, developing, but I've been doing this for a few months, and I get to stuff myself and have a feast once a day, and then fast for 22 hours. And every day I stretch. I do a little bit of personal yoga, and prayer and meditation, and some kind of physical activity. And most days I lift weights, and that's what I enjoy. I take a ton of supplements because even eating like that, a lot of our food is leached of nutrients. So, I take not just a multivitamin and like a vegan fish oil thing. I have a lot of joint issues from rugby. So I take supplements.
And lifting.
What?
And lifting.
Anyway, so that's my regime. And regimes a bit. We want regime change. Right. But this is, what to me is like my expression of appreciation. It's not like, I sometimes I get sucked into a vanity side of it. I very much enjoy like getting stoned and lifting weights and getting stoned and sitting down and having a feast of a meal every night. And I enjoy this process, but ultimately it supports my spiritual experience of life. It supports my brain health. Allows me to live and engage with the world and humanity more experientially than consumptively.
I do want to get into that, but I don't want to So you were triggered by watching another veteran who was not taking care of his body, and you were gently making fun of their weight while maintaining the principles espoused by Martin Luther King and practiced by him of peaceful, non-violent resistance. So while you were poking at them with words, never did you make any sort of intimation or act that would seem that you were physically going to be
right.
Them
and I actually verbally affirmed that. And at one point, I physically resisted by holding onto my handcuffs when I was cuffed to a horseshoe welded to a steel bench in order to stay in the way of their processing area. And I made them pry me off of that with 4 deputies. But other than that, I didn't even, actively resist at all. It was just complete non-cooperation. So the first thing was, do you want a book? No. And I don't think they ever demanded, so I can't say I refused, but I declined to book into the jail. Okay. And I've done this before. Like, this was a combination of tactics. This was my 8th time doing at least an overnight incarcerated, and I've done anywhere from 1 overnight, a handful of weekends, a handful of 2-week periods, and then my 1 4-month government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat for the shotgun in D.C.
This is a short-term one. If you've already clocked in 4 months,
yeah, but I was ready to do that. I think at some point they figured that out because I got really comfortable. And I prefer being in solitary for a number of reasons, for different reasons for me. Like, if I like to be able, I worked out naked. I did yoga naked, and I did my calisthenics naked. I never accepted gym clothes except for the socks and flip-flops when I asked for them. Like, that was it. Like, I never changed into oranges. I wore the same clothes. A love t-shirt with the voluntarism V for the V in the love, and fleece-lined cargo pants, which were nice to turn inside out and roll up into a pillow. So they didn't give you a pillow. And it is a weird kind of psychological torture, but after a while, I got, and having to listen to the TV from around the hall before I got earplugs and they kept the volume down was a kind of torture. But I got books and I got pen and paper after a while. And you give me books and a pen and paper and a good cause, I'll sit in a 6x9 box, for as long as it fucking takes. I'll embarrass the shit out of you. I will shine a spotlight and I will stare you down until you do the right thing. And in this case, it took a little more action. I sent a fuck you letter Basically, I will not recognize your authority. I will not bend the knee. I am in the right doing this. I sent that letter. I was publicly. I recorded it in a phone call to GI Mary Jane. She got those out on my channels with a call flood request to the county and the police department and the DA and the judge. So that's shining the spotlight.
Yeah.
Letting them know people are watching this. And this is a tiny
Yeah.
county, by the way, Swatch County, population of about 6,500 people. Like it's tiny, and that's why now I'm offering them. Well, we'll come back to the letter that we're asking people to share now. But
I want to cover a little bit of the background just for the people
sure,
watching.
sure, yeah. And we'll come back and
Yeah.
I'll explain
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
legal process that led to this absolute
Yeah,
victory.
please. So, just for everybody following at home, what we did was we did an introduction with Adam Kokesh. Then we talked in emotionally, spiritually, how Mr. Kokesh is feeling right after this incident. I wanted you to see his personal take and the emotion related to this raw and directed to you so that you could know that this actually happened. We live in a time where people claim anything and everything, and they'll stage it, Juicy Smollett, etc. And I wanted you to see in Adam's eyes that this actually happened. This man went through it, and everything that he's saying, he actually fully believes. This is the man that I know. And I wanted to prove that to you. Now, keeping with the way that I like to do interviews, we're going to get into the hard facts.
If I may just interrupt to set you up here, I am the guy telling this story for whom it is like most believable. Because if someone you never heard of told you the story, you'd be like, that's fucking no way that happened. Yeah, all right, maybe. Like, let me see. But like, you hear my story, you go, well, he's done that before. 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 He's achieved that before with that. Yeah, he's pulled that. All right. But now it's like a really unique, decisive victory on a clean victory on right to own any natural drugs and to travel as a human right rather than a privilege that you have to pay for with license.
I mean, you certainly made a precedential move here, and the way that they did it is now established law. They'll have to reflect upon that in any cases related to it going forward. Very quickly, here is the press release released by his press secretary, Marcus Poulos, nice guy, on December 24th, 2021. Kokesh fought the law, and Kokesh won. These are not going to be my words. I'm going to read the press release for you. Then we'll go back to Adam to ask about it. This is in order to give you some context on the story from a personal angle you just heard. We're going to pull back, show you the distance, unemotional, fact-based storyline, and then we'll come back to Mr. Kokesh. So here is the press release from Mr. Kokesh and his staff. Often we hear about the injustice that happens at the hands of the police. Most of the time, law enforcement is nothing but hired bullies who do the bidding of our tyrannical state. We are taught by the media propagandists that fighting the law will get you nowhere. When Adam Kokesh, libertarian activist and combat veteran, was arrested in Saguache County, Colorado, Friday on December 10th, most assumed this was going to be the case again. The peace activist's arm was injured during the arrest by the Center Police Department, starting the usual cycle of abuse. After calls flooded into the jail demanding he be treated for his injuries, the sheriff finally had him examined by a nurse. Bravery, steadfast adherence to the principles of liberty, and Kokesh's refusal to submit to the authority of unjust laws in this case prevailed. Kokesh was to appear before the court multiple times on charges related to psilocybin mushrooms and driving without a license plate on his vehicle. Refusal to book into the jail. He remained in solitary confinement. True crime requires a victim, and Kokesh had harmed no one. Late on the night of December 22nd, Kokesh was released after the case was completely dismissed. No charges were filed, and his property was promptly returned. If people would stand against unjust laws and refused to obey, the so-called justice system would stop harassing innocent people. We have a natural right to travel and choose the medicines that we put in our bodies. We are free from birth, and Adam Kokesh demonstrated how to claim all of our birthright. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously said, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must always be demanded by the oppressed. Adam Kokesh is an Iraq war combat veteran. Through his involvement in the Marine Corps, he discovered, as Smedley Butler, the famous Marine Corps general in the 1930s, found that war is nothing but a racket. He is a published author and a longtime libertarian activist. For years, He has toured the nation spreading the ideas of liberty. In January 2017, he announced his candidacy for the Libertarian Party nomination for President of the United States on the platform of a peaceful, orderly dissolution of the entire federal government. More recently, he co-founded a 501c3 called Homefront Battle Buddies, which facilitates alternative therapies for veterans, supports homeless veterans, and offers other veteran services. Following his ethical principles, Kokesh continues to spread the message of freedom and localization through his show, Adam and the Man. Now, that statement came from your people. Anything in there you don't agree with that wasn't accurate, or was that a pretty good summation of you and what you just went through?
No, that's great. I appreciate it. And Marcus is an incredible volunteer, Marcus Pulis, but you did misspeak at the end there. It's Adam versus the Man.
Versus.
Important distinction. No, and I think that's a great setup, but I should just add one thing to explain my comment earlier, that in the context of all of that, not only have I done 8 significant jail stays, as I described earlier, but somewhere between 50 and 100 police confrontation or civil disobedience or protest where you're not supposed to type cite and release events. Actually, if you count overnights, there were a couple others in DC, so I'm really at like not 8, but I think 10 or 11.
10 or 11 let's go with solid 10 overnights and nearly 200 peaceful interactions refusing to obey.
Yeah, and a total of now maybe 7 months, with one 4-month stay, all the other ones in this 12 days, 10 days in Wise County, Texas, 3 days in New Orleans, a bunch of weekends and overnights. It probably adds up to like, 6 or 7 months total time. But then on top of that, there's like somewhere between 50 and 100, sort of petty ones. Some of them were big and very memorable, like, major anti-war protests around the Iraq War back in 2007, 2008, back when the anti-war movement was still backed by liberal Democrat money, before Obama was elected and the anti-war movement disappeared. It went into hibernation.
Oh, yeah. 1,500 hours of protest, you said?
No, 50 to 100, somewhere in that range. I really have no idea of other, principled arrests. Some spontaneous, some staged.
There you go. That's the stats right there. 200 refusals, around 10 overnight stays, and 50 to 100 principled arrests.
Oh, that's what Marcus, is that what Marcus over?
No, I just typed that on right now.
Okay, yeah, it's something like that. It's probably more, though. I mean, I've been doing this since I got out of the Marine Corps, November 30, 2006, and was active full-time with Iraq Veterans Against the War. And even before that, I was a student and enthusiast of civil disobedience, and I just didn't realize, what an obscene opportunity it would be to pass up, to not do everything I could to have my story of what was really going on in Iraq heard when it was still relevant, and there were still, significant. My story was still relevant to the point where, like, if America fucking knew what was happening on the ground, these people wouldn't be dying over there. Fucking listen to me, and do whatever it takes to be heard in that context. So, that being said, to the legal strategy here, a lot of people are afraid to go into custody because there are a lot of risks associated with it. And I don't mean to demean that, but in terms of what for me was an active strategy of nonviolent resistance, I had to draw a line of, I am interacting with these people as human beings. I am talking to them. They are responsible for my care and well-being. And if I make these demands, they have to meet them. They actually did a pretty good job serving me vegan food by their standards, 3 meals a day. But it was an interesting conversation to get to that point. So shout out to the two civilian jail
Well,
cooks there, Deb and Lori, who did such a
if
good
I
job
can,
with the limited
to
budget.
get at I think an issue that a lot of people may be asking though, if you had not been in the military, and if you had not been in combat, and if you had not had to face death, and if you had not had to see other people die, would you be up for all of this? I mean, if you never had those experiences, you never faced death, you were never shot at, you never had to go, wow, I almost died and I'm still alive, and have that second view on life, and also the toughness of going through the Marine Corps training. Say what you will about whatever your opinion is on the Marine Corps, but you can't be a little bit of a weak guy or woman and get through that. If you didn't have all that, would you be up for all of this people are looking for on the banner right now? Because when we're comparing you to other activists, I know other activists who slightly go into the world that you are, but they do it without the combat training and the experience and the training and the motivation. I mean, did this help form you into the person you are, or would you have done this if it was another dimension and you never had any of those pivotal experiences? How much of that prepped you to be able to
So
handle?
yeah, I do want to give a shout out to sort of the there are in America today, maybe depending on how you want to quantify and draw category lines here, half a dozen to a dozen civil disobedience activists of this level and commitment. And one of them I'm going to shout out by name, who is at least at my level. And I would say until this arrest, clearly ahead of me on impact of his arrests and his commitment and his time and what he's done and experience. Like, and I've been raided, he's been raided. We've done time in solitary, non-solitary. Ian Freeman of the Free State Project, Free Talk Live. I was honored to get to do an interview with him for 3 hours yesterday as a Christmas special for Free Talk Live, and with co-host Captain Kickass. And he's not a military veteran. And he's done time for cryptocurrency and religious freedom organizing, and has faced. I mean, if I add up if you really, it'd be a fun exercise to add up hypothetically all the time I've been charged with. That would be the way to keep score.
You're a professional activist. Why don't you already have those stats ready to go, brother?
That would be the way to keep score. How much time have you faced versus how much time have you done, right? So for me, you would add up for the shotgun and all the charges I had associated with that episode, it would be like a couple of 100 years. All my petty arrests, it'd be like another couple 100 years. This one was 24 plus change years. And what have I actually done? 6 to 7 months. Ian's score.
If you're laying it out as
on that scale
12 in America, I would get those stats up because you can see a picture, faces, and then along a column like arrest days, arrest number of total.
All right, if someone wants to put together a civil disobedience activist leaderboard by those various metrics, I would love to see it. I will promote it.
I'm just saying, if it's only 12 of you out of a population of maybe 1 to 200 millions, that's worth promoting. And if your independent analysis comes up with you as number one, I mean, hey, that's another.
Yeah, but we don't. Yeah, the thing about when you get to this level, you kind of transcend metrics because we don't do it for that. It's not a dick measuring contest for me. I didn't plan this arrest at all, and this might be my most epic civil disobedience victory, and it was completely spontaneous. And it's just because I live my life as a continuous Fourth Amendment audit. I'm always doing something that I know is righteous, that I have a right to do, that I didn't get permission for.
Of course.
In this sense, I kind of did, in the sense that I'm a member of the Okalavoya Native American Church. But let me get to the strategy and sort of the sequence of events that led to this epic victory and where we are now. So when I booked in, I just refused to cooperate, but I demanded everything that was my right. I said, I want my phone call. I want vegan food. I want another blanket. I want medical attention. I want a multivitamin. I requested that. I said, I want medical cannabis. Like I at least want edibles. Like it's something that I have documented. I want, et cetera, et cetera. Like all of my, I want another roll of toilet paper. Like just I want a toiletry kit. I want a toothbrush. I want toothpaste. I want access to showers. Like I'm not playing your game. You can't deny me these things because I didn't play your fingerprint game. Like, no, these are human rights that you extend to anybody that is in your custody, and I will make you pay that price. You want me in custody,
Right?
will be that burden on you.
They
And
comply.
they more or less, they're pretty disorganized, and it's a very underfunded jail. But yeah,
Wow.
books, and I got books too. I got access to books and pencil and paper. So like you give me a 6x9, with a steel bunk and a toilet sink combo unit, and books and pencil and paper and a good cause, and I'll fucking sit there and stare at a wall and do yoga and calisthenics and as long as it takes, man. Like I'll dig in. Like
Well,
that's like
right.
it's like when they look at my record and they hear me go, listen, motherfuckers, every minute that you keep me in here, your tab is going up with me, and I will stay here as long as it takes. And the first strategy or strategic play was declining to book and demanding my rights. The second one was a day later. I had to deny or decline to take bond because it's a recognition of their authority. It's saying that my freedom can be purchased for $10,000 or a $1,500 purchase of a $10,000 bond, blah, 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 blah. Either way, they're holding me for ransom. I mean, we're going to decline doing the right thing. We're just going to suck money into this system. And I couldn't tell a bondsman in good faith that I'd even fucking recognize their authority if I signed out, but I would have to submit by signing papers. And that paper, and that is a commitment that I take as a principled stand that I will not compromise my word for. Like if you're pointing a gun at me, oh look, there's an airplane, swipe, yeah, I'm gonna lie to get out of that situation. But I'm not gonna compromise my word to recognize your bullshit authority. I'm gonna say fuck you. And so I declined bond on Saturday after being arrested Friday. And they said, either way, you're going before a judge on Monday. And I knew that, like, I had the opportunity to bring back bond if I wanted anyway. But that if I recognized their authority in that, not only would I be compromising on principle, but I would be accepting this headache that I've dealt with. Well, then you got to go to court. Well, then you got to talk to a DA. Well, even if you're pro se, you got to plead your case and be approved to go pro se. And it's like, once you recognize their authority, you're playing their game. And I just from the beginning said, fuck that, I am not playing your game. And so when they said it's time for court Monday, I was laying in my bunk naked and I said, no, thank you. And then I got pencil and paper and I wrote my letter. They said, well, I said, I figured they'd actually decide on something like reduce my bond to zero and kick me out of jail at that point. And I have ways of not getting kicked out of jail. Like I got other cards up my sleeve of resistance, of passive and active physical resistance. What's it worth to you to not have to throw a veteran on the street naked? You want that? Dress me by force, motherfuckers. Like, let's see how that goes. You want to play that game? Like, I am going to make this. I got cards to play, and that's just scratching the surface. But my big card was, I will sit here and I will be a pro se defendant and I will demand my right to a speedy trial, and it is going to cost you. And none of you fuckers are going to have a job by next election cycle if you really want to play this game with me, because I will make it cost you, and I will show the citizens of this county that it is not in their best interest for you to pursue this case. So
right.
On Wednesday, so they said you're going back to court Wednesday. Let me just get through like the legal to that. So they said you're going back to court Wednesday, and Wednesday they came to my cell. And they said, I actually demanded a legal phone call. I used it to call my partner, Mary Jane, Joey Lee, who did an awesome job of jail support coordination that made this possible, along with my dad, who was the one person I was able to call my first call. But got a hold of her to record me reading this letter to the public and the judge that was basically, fuck you, I don't recognize your authority. I'm in the right here. And I admitted to my crime. Yes, I had mushrooms, and I intended to distribute them to veterans as such. And I know it's not specific legal admission, but yeah, I basically said, yeah, I did it. Fucking come at me. Like, really, it's not going to hold up as that charge. I knew that I could beat it if I had to in a jury trial. If I had to sit there, at least beat it down to a simple possession without the distribution. Like, there's no way. Like, and they knew the other ultimate backstop that I knew was one of my sort of ultimate backstop trump cards in this is, if this goes to a jury trial, well, psilocybin's decrim in Denver County, right over there. This is southwest Colorado, Saguache County. Denver County, much bigger population, but they've already went to psilocybin complete decrim. In all of Oregon, Oakland County, California, and a handful of other municipalities have already said, we're not pursuing psilocybin, and we're not pursuing personal possession of any drugs at all. And so that's what I'm just calling them to the carpet for, and being like, look, I'm gonna make it cost you that much to pursue this case, and I'm gonna show the people that it's bad policy, and they know it, and that's why. So I sent that letter, and then I got someone inspired by that letter, a public defender, shout out to John Hope, came and visited me, gave me a little legal advice that I needed, is that check, oh yes, I should do that now, it's that time. So I filed a motion. I wrote it out by hand on notepad paper in jail, but it was a formally formatted case citation, properly addressed, motion to dismiss based on these grounds. And a big part of it on the mushrooms was religious freedom. And this was the card that I played in my Texas case. So again, kind of nothing new, except the perfect strategic application of it, which required the discipline on my part to just stand my ground, and knowing, like, having fallen off that cliff so many times and taken plea deals and negotiated and recognized authorities, being like, no, from the get-go, I don't recognize your authority at all. You're fucking kidnappers. You want me to speak your language? I'll put it in a motion to dismiss, so you can use this as the excuse to let me go. I wrote a letter also to the district attorney demanding my discovery under Rule 16, Colorado Criminal Procedure, because and they're like, we're not going to fight this. So what they did is they filed a motion. The DA filed a motion on the 12th day I was locked up, right before I was supposed to have a meeting, and the next day the court was scheduled for that following Wednesday. This was the day before that. The DA filed a motion to dismiss because he was going to decline to file charges. So it was dismissed without prejudice, and I was ordered released. But not just that, because I would have stayed in jail if they were still holding my truck for ransom. And my dogs, like I said, they went through some shit, Elm and Ruiz. They were left out in the cold for the weekend before they could get picked up. And that's kind of why I'm demanding, an apology for them at this point. But we'll get to that as well in just a minute here, because I got a list of demands.
So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But I needed to ask you a question. I need to ask you a question, though, before we move on, though. Just for the audience, you've talked a lot about resisting the power, holding them to account, and saying that I won't. But also interwoven into your story was the fact that you had people on the other side helping promote your message and get it out to a vast network. Yeah. Would you be so bold, I have to ask, if you did not have the network and you did not have the support structure and it was just you?
Oh, no. It was absolutely critical. And there are a lot of ways that we can support each other in this, and I want to be able to provide that, and we're exploring some ideas to organize and properly fund that. But it is a pretty significant venture to take on, to have a nationwide network of jail support, because even if just everybody refused to take plea deals, I mean, the whole drug war would shut down, like, overnight, like within a matter of months. If there was some nationally promoted thing that there was buy-in and we had some financial incentive and things like that for people to just not take a plea deal, just that one level of resistance, not any of the jail stay or hardcore type stuff of me just sitting there in solitary. And I don't think it's hardcore. It's just fucking patience and commitment. Like, it's really, being in an American jail these days, it's not that bad. Like, they really do kind of have to take care of you. And there's cameras everywhere. They don't want people getting significantly hurt or dying in jail. We have enough of a system of accountability that, like, if you get injured in jail and it's clearly documented, there's a pretty good chance they're going to get financially fucked. And it's bad for them as an institution. It's bad for their budget to have to be like, well, $50,000 for damages here, $100,000 for damages there. And that's kind of become the expectation, the precedent. And like, when I was in jail in DC for 4 months, I got kosher meals because I am legitimately Jewish by heritage, ethnicity. And so, like, I'm going to exercise my option to be religiously Jewish now, and you're going to feed me kosher. And it was like better meals, more nutritious. And I was like, cool, I'll take it. This time I was like, I'm vegan. And I have been. And that's something I actually really It's an important part of my personal evolution. I'm not going to get preachy about it again, but like I said,
We can do that at the end.
I know under U.S. law and precedent, if an inmate anywhere in America says I'm vegetarian or I'm vegan or I have a specific religious diet, they legally have to provide it. Fuck you, I'm vegan. Feed me vegan. And I will demand that you give me real, nutritious meals as a vegan. And they did their best. They did a pretty good job.
What about but there are cases of BLM activists, especially when they were really big about 2 or 3 years ago, filming the police being arrested for that and then dying in jail a few days later because they didn't get particular medicine they did and nothing happened. I remember, I think it was Sandra Bland, a woman in Texas, and all she did was film a Texas cop and she was dead 5 days later in jail.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different personal liability, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't enjoy, all of the privileges of being a generally burly, healthy white male. Like, I get it, and mitigating all the threats of being in jail and being a public figure that, like, by the time I get booked or into the building, like, and identified, they know I got a Wikipedia page. Absolutely. Certain privilege, I recognize with that. Not that I haven't earned it at this point, but like I get that, and also being, I'm average height. I'm 5'10", average adult male American height. I don't know by what metric, whatever. I'm 5'10", 5'10 and a half, and
top knot.
And yeah, right. And I'm 200 pounds, and I'm very lean. It's like I'm pretty muscular. So like, and I got a Marine Corps tattoo. Like, I'm not your victim. Like, so that whole dimension of it is like, I don't have to worry about that. I get that that's a luxury. I'm very much like spiritually, grateful and dependent upon my particular healthy diet and supplements and my regimen. But I am more than capable of saying, feed me vegan and demand like whatever it takes to get a multivitamin and an allergy pill. I have like hay fever. I get allergies and snot nose and shit like that sometimes. And itchy eyes.
We all have our things.
It's not that bad. But like, even if it was that, it's not a big deal in jail. Like, there's not pollen everywhere in jail. Like, it's not a big deal. So, I demand that stuff, and I can get that and get comfortable. And I get that I have that advantage, and I have the spotlight, and it happens faster. And everybody, let's recognize, as soon as the red lights are on behind you, or you get a piece of paper that says, if you do not comply, force will be used against you, right? You're under duress. And I will never judge anybody for submitting to duress or taking a plea, because you have to make that call for yourself. And it is one of the ultimate rights that you should have respected as an individual human being in all circumstances, to determine, your own liability in life, right? And I would never suggest to hold someone to a standard on an individual basis. But if everybody just did some resistance in that, even if it's just don't take your first plea deal, a plea offer, don't consent to a search. Assert your rights as you go. There are ways to manage that physical liability. But even if you go to jail, and this is something Joey and I were just talking about last night, that one of the temptations is, if I book in, if I submit, if I let them fingerprint me and photograph me, put me in oranges or stripes, fill out their paperwork, then at some point I'm going to get to say, I have this medical condition, and no, not necessarily. Like, they'll skip you. They'll, whatever, medical screening, now they're okay. But if from the beginning you say, I am not going to cooperate with anything until my health is addressed. You're not being a dickhead. You're not bringing in anything political. Just think about this. You're going into the jail. You're going into the custody situation. Hey, I'm not going to answer questions without an attorney. I don't want to book in. I have to decline every offer. I have to be very serious about this. My health is at stake. Until I am confident that I have access to this medication or this care, I am not going to talk about anything else. You are more likely to get cared for that way than if you submit to their process. That's a weird thing to realize strategically, but you think it through and you go, yeah, it's absolutely true. submission does not pay. Put your health first and demand that they take care of your health in those circumstances, and you're going to have a better outcome every time.
I would like to repeat something you said in your press release. So if more people would stand against unjust laws and refused to obey, the so-called justice system would stop harassing innocent people. We have a natural right to travel and choose medicines for our bodies. We are free from birth, and Adam Kokesh demonstrated how to claim that birthright. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. That's why I think, not to oversimplify it, and certainly not to imbue something that's a travesty of why all of you are so motivated. But if you had some sort of chart of the top 12 activists and the amount of time that they had to be in jail, you might be able to start influencing the younger generation that this is the heroic thing to do. People like to see models. They like to see.
Well, hey, in that case, you know, we need to be actively promoting the stories of people who are still locked up unjustly. And top of my list would be Ross Ulbricht for the Silk Road, who's doing 2 life sentences. And everybody needs to be plugged in to the Free Ross efforts and support his mother, Lynn Ulbricht. And she has been doing an amazing job. And there's still a significant legal battle around his case. But he's done years at this point for creating a website to help people get safer, better access to drugs. And it's the greatest travesty of justice, I think, of our time right now. So until we see him freed, you know, we got the Julian Assange case, I think, is another high profile one to fight for. I don't know what Ed Snowden's particular case legal status is right now, but we're still living in Russia. Like, that has, what the hell, that hasn't been resolved. And there are a dozen more. You know, those are sort of the 3, you know, high profile ones that jump out at me, but those are active cases of people facing. And until recently, Reality Winner, she was recently unincarcerated, released from captivity for her whistleblower activism. It was almost a shame that, you know, she had to do the years that she did. And there are, you know, at least a couple dozen others that I don't have off the top of my head who are, you know, equally, if not as you know, more so righteous and even significant in their activism. But in terms of, you know, the freedom that the causes of those 3 men represent, of you know, whistleblowing in the case of Ed Snowden, freedom of the press and working with whistleblowers and publishing whistleblower documents in the case of Julian Assange, collateral murder and Chelsea Manning with her case, very meaningful to me as an anti-Iraq war activist. To see that out there, and that collateral murder video, man, that, you know, that we need a lot more of that. We need all that evil the government is committing right now to be freely expressed. And then Ross Ulbricht, for people having, you know, the freedom of commerce that is made possible through the internet and cryptocurrency, with anonymous mechanisms and accountability and money that's not paying off the bankers through the inflation tax like the U.S. dollar. You know, I mean, standing up for those causes by standing up for those 3 men in their cases right now, hugely significant. And let's stay focused on those.
I think all of them are important, and I think you have to have more activists willing to actually jump in and deal with jail time, and whatever it takes to encourage them is how you win. You're looking for a numbers game. You're going to win this battle the way they did the Civil War, by sheer numbers of people overwhelming the system till it collapses. And that strategy is proven to work when we look at the model of South Africa. It was in South Africa where the South African resistance members started birthday parties and celebrations every time somebody would go to jail. And they would do it in front of their children. So they encouraged the generation.
I want to point out one thing that I can offer, like, right away. And we have a website that we're sort of developing that's just, it's not even active right now, but my email, adam@thefreedomline.com. If you can put that on the screen there. When I got locked up just now, my partner Joey was monitoring that. There's one other person at least who has access to that if I'm ever locked up. But that's my main email that I monitor. And if you want to send an email there, or if you get locked up and you want this spotlight support. If you have a righteous case and you want to say, like, I'm just going to go non-compliance, but I want that air support as well, email me and we will shine the spotlight on your case. We will make sure there's a call flood into the jail and to the relevant legal authorities in your case, and they will know that people are paying attention and that they can't just get away with what they normally get away with, and that that you're going to be something that someone they have to deal with, not someone who's going to submit. So we can at least do that. Now, whether this is the strategy that ends it all, I don't know. I'm more excited by the fact that I'm now comfortable just going like, yeah, we grow and give away mushrooms here. That's what we do now. Whether it's for veterans or not, I don't really care. It's sort of separate from the nonprofit, because the nonprofit is a C3 that's just a facilitator for veterans retreats that takes tax-free donations. But on top of that, I grow mushrooms here. I give them away to people. Come at me, bro.
You mad, bro? 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 Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into the thing I was demanded to cover with you by your publicist.
Oh, right.
You're going to have demands to release to law enforcement, and I think this is the first time you have expressed those, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, let me just read this one-page letter quick as I can here. And it's addressed Christmas Day to all the county commissioners. There's only 3 of them, to the sheriff, chief of police, district attorney. Dear friends, people of Saguache County, District Attorney Alonzo Payne, Sheriff Dan Warwick, Chief Dale Meek, Sergeant Aaron Frescas, Sergeant Adam Frescas, and Officer Christian Guadarrama. Merry Christmas, blessed solstice, happy Festivus and seasons. Greetings to all. My name is Adam Kokesh, and I recently spent 12 days in solitary confinement in the Saguache County Jail thanks to the actions of 3 officers of the Senate Police Department on December 10th. The 3 officers involved showed reckless disregard for the law, my rights, and the best interests of the people they supposedly serve. Having now beaten the charges I was falsely accused of, I have a pack of rabid dog civil rights attorneys drooling over this case, ready to sue all of those involved for everything you are worth. Even if I were to lose the cases for wrongful search and seizure, property damage, wrongful imprisonment, injury sustained, rights violations, and many more possibilities, it would cost me nothing to pursue those cases, and you would lose at least thousands of dollars worth of resources and labor hours fighting me off. I don't want to go that way, so with this letter, I present an alternative. In exchange for sparing you this, I only ask that you, 1, provide me $2,400 for the material damages done to my truck and logistics costs. 2, provide me with all records regarding the case to which I'm legally entitled under Rule 16 of Colorado Criminal Procedure, including body camera footage and all recorded related correspondence. 3, return the remaining property you took from me, including the psilocybin capsules. 4, have a motion granted to get the dismissal of my case upgraded to with prejudice. That's the distinction that says it can't be brought back, as opposed to without prejudice, which means that it could be brought back, as is currently on the books. 5, never jail anyone in the county for simple drug possession ever again, and adjust policy everywhere relevant to ensure it never happens again. Yes, Saguache will be a decrim county on par with policy in Oregon. Number 6, get your act together when it comes to inmate requests at the jail for things like clothing, pencils, paper, hygiene products, and showers. Get your act together, providing a decent library and exercise opportunity for inmates. Get your priorities straight and provide a greater portion of your jail budget for food for inmates. I should have included something about mattresses and pillows. 7, institute a compassionate booking process that ensures immediate access to everything inmates are entitled to, especially healthcare, mental health screening, and legal consultation. 8, create a veteran liaison position to designate someone to consult with every military veteran who enters Saguache County Jail as an inmate. 9, immediately release everyone in the Saguache County Jail who is there for victimless crimes unless you have a specific reason to believe they are an immediate, clear, and present threat to the community. 10, adjust policy everywhere relevant in the county to reflect respect for all Americans' right to travel without harassment by law enforcement and our Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. 11, have the 3 officers responsible make a personal written apology to my dogs, Thelma and Ruiz, for the abuse they experienced, the commitment to all dogs that it won't happen again. 12, adjust policy to ensure that animals seized by law enforcement in the county are treated humanely. 13, send a copy of this letter to every law enforcement officer in the county and post a copy in the bulletin board / employee notice area in every government building in the county until every item on this list is completed. And then finally, that's item number 13. Good things come in 13s. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. If you don't have this letter mounted in every building by close of business by Monday, January 3rd, I will take it as a rejection of my magnanimous offer. If you choose to reject this offer, all funds that I generate from lawsuits will be used to create an endowment for my nonprofit, Homefront Battle Buddies, to fund scholarships for veterans from Saguache County to experience psilocybin at our facility in Arizona. All of the policy adjustments that I'm requesting are compassionate, revenue positive reforms that are in everyone's best interests. I'm open to negotiation and revising this letter. I look forward to hearing from y'all one way or another. But if I don't, you'll be hearing from me. Yours truly, Captain Freebeard, friend of humanity, brother of freedom lovers, aka Adam Kokesh, February 1st, 1982, former sergeant of the Marines.
I've got to ask. It's a powerful message, but real question, because I'm trying to do a fair interview here. Was that a good idea to put tongue-in-cheek jokes into such a serious conceptual letter? Does that strengthen your case?
I enjoy my stylistic presentation. I don't wring my hands over it.
Okay. All right.
I think that's a far better approach than to accept any kind of bullshit self-consciousness based on others' petty judgments in your life.
No. I just thought the legal system's designed.
And there's no joke in this. I mean, it's funny to say, yeah, you're going to make a written apology to my fucking dogs, but I'm dead serious. Well, and they're going to do that. Of all things, if I made it just about that, they would do it. And if I wanted to play that card and made it just about that point and said, you know what, I am going to cost you thousands of dollars, or you're going to make a funny little exception, and you're going to pass on an order for these 3 officers to keep their jobs. They're going to write Adam's dog a nice little note. They're going to fucking do it. Or they're going to be exposed for the selfish, pig-headed, arrogant assholes that they might prove themselves to be.
Right. If not what I'm talking about. Yeah, I understand.
Write a note to my dogs that saves the taxpayers of their county thousands of dollars.
That's not what I'm talking about. You could have written a letter for the dog, and I'm not criticizing. I'm asking for people watching from a well-known veteran activist about strategy. In the letter, you say Festivus and Captain Beard. That gives a tongue-in-cheek.
Captain Freebeard. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about your style judgments anymore. And I'm done paying for my rights, and I'm done pleading for freedom. I said that in the letter, like even before the letter I sent to the judge, the public letter before. I'm not going to take a plea because I don't recognize your authority. I don't plead with evil. I mean, I'm not going to plead with you. I'm not going to enter a plea because you want me to, because that's your procedure. Fuck you. I'm not going to let you ransom my freedom. I'm not going to beg for my rights. I'm going to demand them. And if everybody did that, how much less bullshit would we all have to put up?
I agree. But
in the middle of that, you want me to worry about stylistic judgments? Fuck you. I'm going to enjoy my style.
I'm just saying that some people, some activists that I've met say keep it very strict so that you're seen as not making a mockery of the law and you're more likely to get the judgments you want from the law. Other activists believe, hey, let them know you don't recognize their authority from an emotional, spiritual, and legal standpoint.
It might be the most important thing we do right now to make a fucking mockery of their law that deserves mockery, to mock this fucking system. And in a way, one of my regrets in this is not having more humor as part of it. No, like, and I'll show you right now, my desktop background is a quote from John Lennon in a meme graphic that I made for myself, just for my desktop. It's my favorite John Lennon quote. When it gets down to having to use violence, then you are playing the system's game. The establishment will irritate you, pull your beard, flick your face to make you fight. Because once they've got you violent, then they know how to handle you. The only thing they don't know how to handle is nonviolence and humor. And there were I told plenty of jokes. I gave a lot of humor with the inmates from around the hall, first 4 dudes, and then they got replaced by 4 women, and inmates going back and forth, and all the guards that I came into contact with in that 12 days. But more important is I maintained a general spirit of humor. You don't have to be funny, but just a general positive, humorous spirit. Be ready to engage and laugh with people over dumb shit. It's so humanizing and helpful, and it's in your best interest for safety, and it's in the best interest of your own mental well-being to maintain a humorous mindset anyway, to be able to laugh at life and appreciate the natural comedy of the universe. And then if anything, if anything, my only regret is not coming up with more jokes while I was locked up, you know, and yeah, but I maintained a positive. I mean, there were some times when I was aggressive in my communication and demanding, and it was all called for. It was all righteous. And it was all productive. But if you're not making a mockery of the system, even by engaging with it seriously, even if you're maintaining your moral framework of not recognizing its authority, by not mocking the system, you're giving it dignity that it doesn't deserve. And you're giving it a piece of your compliance, even in doing so, that they need. And as I think is one of the best lessons of this episode for me is like, they need your compliance to fuck you. Don't give it to them. Like in every way, from the individual to the community to the whole human family, to all they, them, those of the super class and the predator class, the elites, whatever the hell you want to call them, those assholes, they need our compliance to exploit us. Stop giving it to them. Adjust your life as best you practically can. It's not about hard lines. It's about true principles like compass directions. You follow your principles, and with an absolute commitment to keeping those in mind and living a principle-based life, and you are going to be happier as a result. I guarantee it. To sound like a commercial now, right? I guarantee you will enjoy life as a pirate a lot more than life as a slave.
Give me 30 seconds. I'm going to change, and then I have 2 more questions for you. I need to go from professional to fellow activist. I was trying to keep a distance from you so the people watching this. Now I want to ask you some questions as a fellow activist. Give me 30 seconds, okay?
All right, so I'll ramble for 30 seconds.
30 seconds, please. The Roman Empire was neither Roman nor an empire. Go.
So, spiritual sidebar here, this being my 8th, at least, major incarceration. It was the first time that I spoke to God. And to complete my answer from before about moments of doubt, in the first few nights I was in jail, actually, I went through a moment of complete despair where I was going to retire. For me, despair was not like, oh, I'm going to give up on life and just go commit suicide or anything. No, never. I am not now, nor have I ever been suicidal. No. But the despair took the form for me of, well, I'm going to retire from activism. I'll just enjoy my homestead and kind of chill out and make art and music and babies and sit back and pass the torch. I even wrote, like, there's no one to quit to as an activist, right? But I wrote in my head even letters of resignation to like a few of my major sponsors, like a handful of people who have given me, over $10,000 over my career. And at some point coming out of that despair, that song and the meditation led me to the point of what I would only describe as speaking to God. And that's a very poor description of what I experienced, because I do not believe in a personified God separate from the universe. My God, I am a pantheist. My God is the pervasive vibration of love throughout the universe that is the oneness of existence itself, that which makes existence one. Love is God. Not just God is love, like God is a living God or an embodiment of love somehow is that living God. But love itself is God. That is the best we have. And to even try to pull some personified or deified or mythological anthropomorphic god thing out of that might create a good gateway for some people, and obviously it has historically. But for me, intellectually, I had a rejection of that, and all the things that led me to first be an atheist and an agnostic and then a pantheist to recognize this. But to be able to put yourself in the headspace to connect with that, to tune in with that, it, there is a way that it is a listening to God experience, and I got that for the first time, and that really kind of made it a lot easier from there on. Welcome back.
Hey, I like to do visual changes so that people know when I talk about a different subject, I'm in a different tone, because then people go, well, you did this, and go, no, I did a costume change. So that was Marcus, the interviewer. This is Marcus, the fellow activist. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, I was considering getting out of activism myself too. And I had a moment of despair, just like you. What would you recommend to somebody who's been doing activism for 10 years and then got kicked in the nuts 15 times in a row to get them to feel centered again?
Yeah. Well, I would start with my favorite Ron Paul quote, and it's not really an original Ron Paul quote, but I like attributing it to him anyway. He said, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And he was talking about, people supporting his campaign and just being encouraging of his grassroots supporters in that, I think. And you got to find a way to make it sustainable for yourself. And there's a practical side of that. And there was a switch for me 5 years ago that was sort of set in stone when I bought this property, and it was 11 acres for $13,000. It's gone up a lot since then, even just the raw land price here since 5 years ago. But that was where, like, at least I'm going to have my home base. I'm going to have my nest egg, and building and investing in the property materially has given me a certain confidence in that. And I won't get into the specifics because that would be a huge whole other sidebar. But for people to find that for themselves and their families, to whatever is essential for them. And if you want to commit to being a young single dude or chick, adventuring and living by the seat of your pants out of an apartment, just someone who can come back here because you're friends with me, I totally respect that too, but decide what that is for yourself to take care of yourself, medically, nutritionally, creature comfort, what you're actually comfortable with, having a home base, having a vehicle, and don't shortchange yourself on that side of it, because that's what's taking care of your brain, your spiritual experience that's riding on that physical experience. And then the second thing for advice would be, just have confidence in your sense of purpose. Take the time and to not just sort of have a personal mission statement, if that's the form it takes for you, even if it's just unspoken in your head. And a lot of activists, already have that, but codify it in some way that it becomes real and tangible, and that true north for you, because that will give you the strength to get through whatever shortcomings in the material realm you might face.
When did you learn that lesson? I've seen many activists do what I did. Go, achieve results. Who gives a shit about anything related to your wealth or health? Aren't you committed? Aren't these people suffering more than you? Who cares, right? You're an activist. Sacrifice yourself to the cause.
Right. Yeah.
When did you snap out of that and realize that self-care, loving yourself, understanding your purpose, knowing yourself, and making sure that you baby and nurture yourself a little bit just so you can hang in this game? When did you get that? Because I went the other way. And I've only
it's not, hold on. I have to correct a little bit of your wording here, because I think it's very, very important to make this point. It's not to take care of yourself so that you can stay in the game, so that you can hang in there. It's not that. It's optimally supporting your brain and your spiritual function as an activist. It's not let me eat ramen noodles, for years and live in a depleted state. Stop and take the time and figure out a way to feed yourself properly because it's going to pay off. It's an investment. It's part of the fight itself. And there was a point of, so when you see it that way, it's just that you're always striking a balance and be conscious of that. And for me, it was that I started with the guiding direction of you're a veteran, and Iraq Veterans Against the War is here as an organization that is a huge force multiplier for you. That my story, me being by myself, I'm much less effective than I am as part of this team with Iraq Veterans Against the War right now. So fall in line, take leadership, take ownership. And I did. And I was a board member, a chapter leader, and blah, 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 blah. I was an organizer with Iraq Veterans Against the War. And I took charge of that opportunity. But, that when it was, I was blessed as an accelerant in my activism from the beginning of having what I described before as, if America knew my story, those people wouldn't be dying over it.
Take care every day to be the best you. And if you're the best you, you'll be able to do the best activism.
Yeah. You learn how to keep your rifle very clean.
You always knew that when you got in this game, or did you learn it somewhere along the way?
I mean, I did do a little bit of activism in a sense, very, very limited, before I joined the Marines and before I went to Iraq. But it was basically all after that, and all after basic, recruit training in the Marines. And one of the lessons, and it is entirely unrighteous. There are no righteous armies that wear uniforms, and the U.S. military is a criminal organization. I could talk about this for hours, but even fundamentally, the founders of this country, who stood for principle, wanted no standing armies. They wanted a militia-based defense. Even just on that, signing up to be part of a standing army is un-American. But there are positive things that you gain out of the experience. They teach you, if you don't know, how to push your body. They teach you situational awareness if you don't already have it. There are better ways to get all of these things. And I really am as anti-militarism as it gets, obviously. I don't think anybody should join the military ever. But I do have a certain respect for people who are like, I'm going to go to boot camp and play the game and then tell them I'm gay and then be like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Or just like, I'm going to go through boot camp for the experience and file for conscientious objector status afterwards. And I'm playing the system to get this free training experience. I'm like, all right, I can. Yeah. Then I'm like, yeah, if you're really confident in that play, fucking go for it. Take a bite out of the system and get that experience. Because they also train you in that mode of combat, of life and death, that is uniquely made tangible as only through modern Marine Corps boot camp, that teaches you to keep your rifle clean. Because if you get there is no downtime. Position improvement is continuous. Your rifle is a survival tool in combat. If you don't have your rifle, you're dead. And you take care of it as you take care of your life, and you are trained to think of it as an extension of that. And so I think of everything around me physically and everything that I have in my virtual world and my contacts and my network and in my head and in my health as the same way in my activism. And everybody would benefit from that analysis and finding that balance. I love being referred to as an activist. I like mentoring individuals and being there to answer questions when people are trying to figure out their own path and their own balance in that.
some really good answers. It reflects a lot of what I've seen. The other question I wanted to ask you, as an activist, I've noticed the last couple of years you started saying free hugs, and you started talking about the importance as a man of self-love
Yeah.
and of love in general. Was it difficult for you? You know, you get into the activist game and it's very, let's go protest, let's get in their face. What did they say? Let's combat them. It's just fight, fight, fight.
Confrontation based
Okay.
mentality.
And then
Yeah.
at some point you go, oh, well, I need to not turn that on me. I can't have confrontation just be the mode of life for every aspect. And at some point, I need to understand that there is such a concept as love, self-worth, loving myself, and also projecting love out. And
Yeah.
I don't know when you made that shift. I've just noticed you started to do it more over the last couple of years. Was there a conscientious break moment when you said, I'm moving into this? If so, how did you get into that? And if not, when did you learn this pivotal lesson that is so key for activists to be able to stay healthy and stay in this game?
Yeah, well, sort of two-part answer to that also. I think as part of having found my guiding light, my Northern Star with anti-war activism and Iraq Veterans Against the War from the beginning for myself, a full-time activism, at least before that, having just sort of dabbled. I also was blessed with a core understanding of love and humanization and saving lives and reducing brutality and standing up to the global war on terror, that was the core motivation. You know, it was very clear. And there were and always are times to engage in aggression verbally. And I'd like to live in a world where we can say, no, Adam, the only time to ever be aggressive is immediate threat to life and limb, and you're like, get the kid out from in front of the bus and you yell as aggressively as possible to get people's attention. We're not there yet. We are still evolving out of not just a global culture of violence and aggression and statism, which we're actually evolved most of the way out of, but a cycle of trauma deeply embedded in our DNA and in our consciousness that's passed from generation to generation, but certainly in our communications. So I would say that I'm always striving to embody that, to live up to that. And I've just gotten better and better and better over the years in various ways in my technique of ensuring that the manifestation of love as a motivator is clear in what I'm doing.
Took me years to get that
Never
lesson.
going to be perfect.
Yeah,
but the sooner you recognize that as part of your guiding light, and make a commitment to, meditating on taking just stillness for yourself. Properly self-care is an act of love, not to the point of indulgence, but really putting the effort to be your best self, as the core act of self-love, and then to radiate that out to others. It's sort of that guiding line that we try to walk, but we have 2 feet and we're always on both sides. But as long as we stay and we're striving towards that, and we get to hit that line and connect to that universal vibration and live in that love and have those moments, hey, that's part of what makes such a diverse experience of being human.
I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to ask one last question. There's a time machine. It opens up right behind your left shoulder. And I walk out and I said, hey, I'm willing to transport you back to the first year you did protests against the Iraq War. And you have 5 minutes to tell the earlier you all the life lessons you wish you knew that would have made things better. Would you say anything? And if so, what would you tell the earlier Adam activists years ago that you wish you knew now? And these are also lessons for other activists to glean wisdom from, if any.
I don't know. I don't think I can answer that. I think some people like me have to learn things the hard way. And I don't think I would say anything. I would just try to observe and absorb and take it to the future as an appreciation of how far I've come. Because you know what? I mean, I'm 39. How about going back to 2006, 2007, really?
Right.
I attribute the mock combat patrol we did on the 4th anniversary in March 19, I believe, March 19, 2007, 4th anniversary of the actual invasion of Iraq. We did the mock combat patrol in DC. I marked that as my start of full-time activism. If you took me back to that, that would be, 14 and a half years ago. I led that patrol through DC. Wouldn't have listened to shit. I have to say right now.
No life lessons. Hey, you got to learn it on your own.
And I know that I can be a mentor and I can help other people learn these lessons faster than I had to, because they're not as fucking pig-headed and stubborn intellectually and spiritually as I was. But I am very happy having walked the path that I have for the last almost 15 years of full-time activism. Absolutely. And yeah, I really wouldn't change a second of it.
There you go. That was the
So
answer.
I got to know with the plug, man. This letter, if you want to help me make this reform happen,
Sure.
in Saguache County and shine the spotlight again, please. There's at least one place online, and I don't know. Everybody's on it, but there's an app. It's easy to download, and it's a great alternative to text messaging because it texts over data and does voice and video call. It's like a comprehensive messaging app that's censorship free, and all security is an illusion of security online. Don't pretend that your communication is secure. But nice. At least it's one layer more protected that they'd have to get through if you're using Telegram as opposed to WhatsApp, which is Facebook owned, or regular messaging. But it has all the digital multimedia advantage that you could possibly pack into an app, plus channels. And my point is, a lot of people like me have used it to escape censorship. And so I have a channel on the Telegram app called Adam versus the Man, t.me/Adam versus the Man. You can find all sorts of other stuff on me. If you just Google Adam versus the Man, you'll find my announcements on Twitter at Adam Kokesh as well. But I would encourage everybody, it's an important sort of conscientious consumer of information thing. Get on the Telegram app, find my channel there to start, Adam versus with an S. But t.me/Adam versus the Man is as one word will get you there. And the letter that I read is published there with all of the email addresses, so you can forward it and cut and paste. Please do that. Let's shine the light on Saguache County for Christmas and see if we can see how much more we can do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, there it is. T.Adam versus the Man.
No, t.me/Adam versus the Man. But the Telegram, you'll find it.
Okay. Well, this is
Telegram, Adam versus the Man.
Yeah.
You'll find it.
Email him at adam@thefreedomline.com for direct communication. And you heard his demands. You heard a little bit about his background, and we'll be following you. Thank you for the interview. And as always, keep doing what you're doing. Okay. We'll leave it there. Thanks, Adam.